Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining tonight's meeting regarding the Bridge 47 and 78 replacement project. We will get started in just a couple minutes. We want to allow a few more attendees time to arrive. Thank you so much for your patience. Good evening, everyone. Again, thank you so much again for joining us this evening. We'll just give it just a couple more minutes and we'll get started just to allow some other attendees to join us. So thank you again for your patience. About 2 more minutes. All right, good evening. Thank you. So we'll get started now with Ms. Alberta Paul.
Good evening, Ward 7. I'm very pleased to see so many attendees from Ward 7, the place that I was born and raised, and continue to provide public service to the Ward 7 residents. Tonight's meeting is an exciting meeting about two bridges that many of you are familiar with and some may not be. But we want to make sure you're the first to know the DC Department of Transportation is about to renovate, upgrade two bridges in your ward. Bridge 47 is located on Benny Road near 36th Street, and many of you know it as the roadway that leads to the way station that DPW uses to dispose of the city's trash on this side of the city. The second is known as Bridge 78, which is critically used by the Kenilworth Parkside Eastland Garden community and is accessible off of 95 by taking the Nanny Helen Burroughs exit, making an immediate left instead of going to Nanny Helen Burroughs to the right, and a left again after the traffic light says it's safe. When you make that left going into the Kenilworth community, you're crossing over a very small bridge with a creek under it. It is those two bridges that we'll be discussing tonight. And to facilitate coordinating how you will interact with us to ask questions, comments. At the end of the presentation is Miss Stacy Hembry, and she will be talking to us now about how to do that interaction and guiding us into the presenter and the presentation. Stacy.
Thank you so much, Ms. Paul. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us this evening. As mentioned, my name is Stacy Humby. I'm with Tina Boyd & Associates, and my team and we provide outreach support for the project. I would just like to go over a few meeting logistics with you before we get started with the presentation. As shown on the current slide, this meeting will be recorded, and that's just so that we can accurately capture your comments and your concerns. While the team is doing the presentation, everyone's mic, except the presenters, will be muted, and that's just to avoid any background noise. We ask that you put your questions and your comments in the Q&A section, which is found at the bottom of your screen, and we will address all questions and concerns at the end of the presentation. If you're dialing in, you will need to press *3 on your phone's keypad to unmute yourself. All questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. And last, a couple quick other things. We will also ask that you complete a Title VI form for us at the end of the presentation, and we'll provide that information then. And just so you're aware, we're also streaming this on DDOT's Facebook Live page. So I would like to turn the presentation over to Connie, the program manager.
Thank you everyone for coming this evening. With me, I have Geb from DDOT. He will introduce himself. My name is Connie Iskander, DDOT project manager for the project. Geb? Geb? Joe, do you want to continue? Maybe
Yeah,
Geb
sorry, I was on mute. Good evening, everybody. This is Gabe Onyedo with DDOT Planning Division. I'm the PM for the Anacostia Avenue Extension. Thank you.
Good evening, folks. My name is Joe Spadea. I'm the consultant project manager with Pannoni.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Houston Brown. I'm a bridge designer, works for Pannoni, and I'm leading the design on Bridge 78.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Andre Rassol, and I'm a lead engineer for Kenilworth Terrace Bridge over Watts Branch, Bridge 47.
Sarah and Jackie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, this is Sarah Michaeloff. I'm on the consultant team for both bridge projects.
And that's Jackie.
I was going to say, maybe we'll go to Danny if Jackie's having audio issues.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Danny McCoy. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer at Department of Public Works and the Capital Improvement Project Manager for the Benning Road Transfer Station Modernization Project.
Okay, Jackie, are you on? Okay, we'll proceed. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting for the replacement of Bridge 47 and 78. We're really excited to provide you with some insight and an update on the projects. Today's agenda will be starting with a high-level overview, then we'll discuss the status of the project and schedule, and we'll discuss some of the key issues and sort of answer the reason why this work is needed. And then at the very end, we'll turn it back over to Stacy, who will discuss the Title VI form, and we will field questions and answers. To start off, I'm really excited to share that this particular team, in conjunction with DDOT and our friends at National Park Service, are presently working on 3 bridges in Ward 7. It's the same team that's working on the Arboretum Bridge and Trail, and we're really excited to bring all these projects to the ward, which are much needed projects. On the left, you can see the photos. Bridge 47, as Ms. P mentioned, is a small crossing on Kenilworth Terrace that leads across J Street into Mayfair Mansions and the Parkside communities. And Bridge 78 is used primarily by the DPW transfer station, and also for folks that are recycling and delivering paper for shredding. I should mention too that all the projects are approximately one mile within, away from each other, so we have good familiarity with the concerns in the neighborhood. A quick update: the team completed 30% design earlier this year. Essentially, what that means is that we were able to identify the appropriate type of bridge at each location. We've been continuously coordinating with the ANCs, 7D, the Federal Highway Administration, NPS, and several other agencies. Our next step, in fact, we are currently in 65%, which is the intermediate design phase. This is the phase essentially where we'll drill down, we'll begin developing the details of the design so that they'll be ready for construction. Final design is anticipated to be at the end of summer next year. And then we would like to have the project begin construction at the end of 2022. Quick overview of the location for Bridge 47. As we mentioned, this bridge crosses over Watts Branch on Kenilworth Terrace, and then connects here with J Street and Dean Avenue. There's a few views at the end of the bridge, so it's a very short connection. We performed several site visits and a survey, did due diligence, and one thing that we noted was that this is the primary access point to the community. So from the north, most of you residents rely on this bridge, and we know how important it is. Right now it has a single sidewalk. It's also a connection point for the Metro bus, as well as several communities, including Mayfair Mansions. And then also another stakeholder would be National Park Service, who has Kenilworth Park to the north. Some of the key issues that we identified and reasons why we need to perform a replacement of the bridge. Number one, the bridge is currently load posted for 20 tons, which means it's not capable of handling today's modern heavy truck loads. Our plan is to increase capacity for the long term, and given that this bridge is your key entry point, we want to do it the right way. We don't want to put a Band-Aid on it. We want to fix it, replace it, and hopefully it'll serve you for a 75-year window without having to be disrupted. One of the other problems we identified was that one of the abutments, and you can see it in the picture on the right, sits within Watts Branch. That's just due to, over time, the channel meanders, changes path, and currently is scouring underneath of that abutment. So we call this, in the bridge world, we call the scour critical bridges, where the scour and washout under the abutment poses a threat to the stability of the bridge. So we want to make sure we remedy that by replacing it. And then another goal, as we noticed while we were there, a lot of pedestrians use the sidewalk. In the photo down here, you can see folks blazing their own pathway. So we want to provide, when we replace the bridge, 2 sidewalks, one on each side, so that sets the stage for future connectivity. And we go from 1 sidewalk to 2. As you can see here, a photo from our site visit. There's a 20-ton limit on the bridge, as I mentioned. This is a top-down view here, plan view, that I'm moving my mouse around. You can see here it's roughly 70 feet. And most of that abutment I had talked about is in the current stream. So our goal is going to be to replace this bridge with a longer span and one that has 2 sidewalks. So you can see here in the cross section, there's 1 sidewalk right now. And this is the proposed improvement. We're going to have a sidewalk on the north and on the south. We're going to expand the footprint so it goes from 70 feet to 90, and we'll help that will help us reconfigure the stream, reconfigure Watts Branch so it's no longer washing up into the abutments. This is a early concept rendering that we put together. As you can see, there's some aesthetic, context-sensitive details here. One being, maybe the color of the railing system. The other being treatments that could be applied to the abutments. But it's 2 lanes, 1 in each direction, plus 2 sidewalks. We did study several types of maintenance of traffic. Overall, I should note that the project construction cost for replacement of the bridge is approximately $7 million that will be invested in the community here for this bridge. 2 options that we looked at. One would be a single lane closure that would allow traffic to continue to use Kenilworth Terrace and also have the opposite direction be maintained on Kenilworth Avenue Northeast. With a single lane closure, which means we would close one part of the bridge, reconstruct it, then open that side, shift traffic over, reconstruct the other half. It's a longer process. It takes 6 to 9 months, but we are recommending this process because of the demand to maintain traffic in the area. There is another option that we looked at, which may be of more interest to the community. This option involves closing the bridge completely for a period of 2 months. In closing the bridge completely, we would have somewhat of more longer detours, more complex maintenance of traffic. We would have temporary signals. We would redirect traffic here on Kenilworth Avenue Northeast. However, we would be able to get in and get done in 2 months by using what we call accelerated bridge construction. If you think of a Lego set, these are prefabricated elements, usually concrete and steel, that are brought into the site. They're manufactured in a factory, and then they're brought to the site and assembled. And that allows us to accelerate the construction timeline. The other bridge is Bridge 78, which carries Anacostia Avenue over Anacostia River Outlet at the old location of the Pepco power plant. You can see here, this is used by not only the Department of Public Works, it's used by the National Park Service, where they have Kenilworth Maintenance Yard. There's also I believe, a DC watershed as well back there. And one of the main reasons this bridge needs to be replaced is, quite frankly, it's at the end of its useful life. There is significant deterioration on the bridge. There have been numerous repairs over the years, and it is no longer what we would recommend is to be carrying the traffic that it's carrying with the heavy trucks on a regular basis. The bridge has also been susceptible to vibrations, which has caused the bridge to be posted for a reduced load rating and a reduced speed limit. And so we ultimately want to replace the bridge, again, to achieve a long-term solution. And we understand it would also help improve the long-term connectivity and circulation in the neighborhood and multimodal connectivity. The main challenge here, one of the key issues, is going to be maintenance of traffic. DDOT and the design team are currently in discussions and coordination with Pepco. And as I'll show you, we're hoping that we can make use of part of Pepco's property to maintain temporary access to the trash transfer station and other areas. Again, a key to point out here is that traffic must be maintained. The truck traffic begins at 4 a.m. and National Park Service requires access through 5 p.m. So that's the window, the bracket that we have to make sure we maintain traffic. We understand right now, I believe that the transfer station has had some temporary closures, but we're working closely with the folks at DPW. This is a view from the field looking from Benning Road across the bridge. Anacostia River would be to your left. The Pepco site is immediately to the right where the chain link fence is. And I'd like to draw your attention to the roadway deck. It has several patches, repairs. It is below satisfactory. One of the other key things to point out is that there are no sidewalks on the bridge. And so one of the other main reasons to replacing this bridge is to provide a safe sidewalk for not only pedestrians, but folks that would use this bridge in the future, whether they're joggers or quite frankly, bridge inspection folks that would maintain the bridge for DDOT. This is an overview shot. On top here is looking top down in plan view. The overall length of the bridge is roughly 300 feet. It's 4 spans, and as you can see, there's a kink in the end span here. And this is something that we want to, one of the goals in replacement is to also avoid this kink because it creates, we believe it creates some challenges for the design and could potentially be related to some of the issues related to the vibration. Here's a cross section. As you can see, very narrow sidewalks on either end. The bridge does carry several utilities, so those utilities will need to be maintained as well during construction or relocated. And this is the new design that we're proposing, a simple two-span continuous bridge that's approximately 200 feet in length. And if you look closely here, and I should have color coded these, but these are the old piers, these gray piers here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the old abutment is back in here. So we're removing a 4-span bridge and putting back a 2-span bridge. And we're eliminating a lot of structure, which reduces overall cost by having retaining walls instead of all that structure. And again, as I mentioned, we'll have a new sidewalk that will be on the west side, closest to Anacostia River. As I mentioned, we're coordinating with Pepco. In this top-down view, you can see here in orange, this is approximately the location of our bridge. This is Anacostia Avenue. And we're coordinating with Pepco, and we're looking at a couple different options for crossing through the location where the old power plant used to be. And so that's something we're looking at presently. This would help us maintain access again for the trash transfer and National Park Service. This is a rendering just for comparison's sake, just to show you the change in the size and the geometrics of the bridge. This is the existing Bridge 78, and this is the proposed, pardon me, Bridge 78. So you can see as I go back and forth, the amount of structure, of bridge structure we have is reduced, just the 2 spans here. And then there's retaining wall approach that replaces all this other structure. Here's an elevation view of the existing bridge. This was a 3D model that was created from our survey. And then this is the proposed bridge, as you can see, a 2-span crossing. That brings us to the end of our presentation, and I'd like to turn it back over to Stacy, and then we'll take some questions and provide some answers.
Thank you so much, Joe. Okay, so we will now open up the meeting for our Q&A. Just to remind you, you can leave your questions in the Q&A section, which should be located at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. If you're dialing in, pressing *3 will actually serve as a hand raise. We're looking out for this, and your question will be answered in the order in which it's received. our host will unmute you in turn. We also ask that if you're dialing in, please state your name before stating your question. So we will get started with Q&A. We don't have any questions in the Q&A section just yet. So if you're dialing in and you have a question, please hit *3 on your phone's keypad. And we'll give it a moment. While we're waiting for questions to come in to make sure that the attendees don't have any questions, just a reminder, if you could complete the Title VI form shown on the screen right now, you can use the QR code for easy access. And otherwise, if you could just complete that for us and submit it, we'd appreciate it. Just checking again to make sure, are there any questions from any of our attendees?
Do we have any questions on the Facebook live stream?
We're monitoring that as well, Joe. No questions there either at this moment. Just give it another moment just to make sure that, okay, we have one question. Oh, I'm sorry, no, it's not a question. Thanks. Raish is checking Facebook Live. And I still don't have anything in Q&A. Again, if you're dialing in, you may need to hit *3 from your phone's keypad, and that'll serve as a hand raise option. While we're waiting, does anyone on the team have anything to add to the presentation? Okay. So we'll just give it another quick moment just to make sure we're not missing anyone.
Stacy, I should add, I'm not quite sure if I covered it, but for Bridge 78, we're looking at a construction duration of approximately 9 to 12 months and a construction and design cost of approximately $13 million.
Okay, thank you for that add, Joe.
So it's in total approximately $20 million investment in the community.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, I have a question that's come through the Q&A. Will construction of the bridges happen at the same time? And that's asked by Laurel Hammock.
Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you, Laurel. We will try to perform construction at the same time if possible. We do need to be mindful of any other construction that may be happening in the area so that we can coordinate the schedules. I know that Benning Road also is scheduled for improvements, but ideally it would be, both bridges could go out be bid on and the work would be done ideally by the same contractor for efficiencies. Connie, I just want to make sure that that's also the plan of DDOT in terms of how these would be bid.
Yes, that's correct. To do it at the same time.
Thank you, Connie and Joe. Checking Q&A, there's no questions right now. And again, if you are dialing in and you have a question, please hit *3 on your phone's keypad, and that'll serve as a hand raise, and we'll unmute you. Quick reminder to complete the Title VI for us. Thank you so much for taking the time to do that. And I'll just go around one more time to make sure we're not missing anyone. Are there any other questions or concerns for the project team?
Stacy, there's one in the Q&A.
We've just addressed the construction of when would the construction of the bridges happen? Is there another? Okay. So we appreciate that question. So if there's nothing else, no other questions, no other hand raises going once. Just making sure we don't want to miss any questions. Okay. If there are no additional questions, then we really, really appreciate you joining us tonight. And for this presentation on the two bridges. And we'd like to thank you for joining us and wish your family healthiness and also a happy holiday season. And if there are no other questions, then this will conclude tonight's meeting. And thank you for joining. Don't forget to do the Title VI. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sari.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Yeah, thank you. Good night, everybody.